5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast for people who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at One Night in Miami. From IMDb, it is a fictional account of one incredible night where the icons Muhammad Ali, James Brown, Malcolm X, and Sam Cooke gathered discussing their roles in the civil rights movement and the general cultural upheaval of the 1960s. To the ideological ingredients. Actually, let's talk about who wrote, directed, and starred. It's directed by Regina King, written by Kemp Powers, and this is actually based on his stage play, One Night in Miami. And it stars Kingsley, Ben-Adir, Eli Goree, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Eli Goree, Aldis Hodge, and Leslie Odom Jr. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's get to the ideological ingredients. On the production side, union production, and it at least passes the first bar of a reframe stamp. So it may actually earn a reframe stamp. We'll find out more when the reframe project chimes in on that. On the story side, on the one hand, this doesn't pass the Bechdel test. As far as class analysis and class consciousness, it's in a way the heart of the film is from an African-American perspective, a discussion of that. I would still, you know what? I kind of struggle with that one. But we'll chat more. We'll chat in the, we'll chat in the chat. We'll chat with the chat. I'll chat with Jim. You know what? I want to give it like a C- in that area, but further discussion. And speaking of which, I think it is time to welcome my colleague, my comrade, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How you doing, sir?
Jim Chaboyko. There's a great line where Jim Brown is saying, "I'm Jim M.F. and Brown," and it's just like, well, yeah, I could use the first half of that, but anyhow,
I think you know what? We're all adults here, Jim.
That's true.
I never say this is good for children. There's a box for YouTube, and it's like, is this appropriate for children? No, I'm not making this for kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't put that in their
warning.
queue.
Tipper Gore doesn't like us, but yeah, good. Everything's good.
Excellent. What? Anything new in your life?
Let's see now. Probably, but I've forgotten.
That you want to share with us? You're crazy busy right now. I know that much.
Yeah, there's I sort of work two jobs in the spring, so tomorrow I'm looking down the barrel of about a 60 or 70 hour week, but by come Friday it's all me time. No, I'm just kidding. But in addition to doing stuff for my family, but no, it's not bad. The nice thing is that Winnipeg's getting the spring weather. We had 16 degrees yesterday, so for the rest of the world, for us, that's winning the lottery. And
I had windows open today, Jim. Windows open,
and we had rain
to the outdoor air. Yes, rain.
We had rain today. So that's what is this?
Another thing, and for those folks who weren't there, we are coming off the high of, I think, our most successful show to date, which was on Monday, when we had some fun at the expense of the Oscars with a couple of great collaborators, Sean from Lost in the Reel and Cody from the Brock Up Side. So and definitely our most watched video to date. In terms of watch time and everything, and that I think we have the best chat in the internet to thank for that. Because if you don't have that seed at the beginning, it doesn't go anywhere. So
Yeah,
is that our time? Oh yeah.
One of the nice things about that show is that we got a couple of the other guys over the hump in terms of subscribers. We got them over the 100 subscribers level.
We did
a little bit of community. I don't know, what do you call that? Outsourcing or signal boosting or what have you.
Yeah, signal boosting, self-aid, mutual aid. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Dragon Movie Guy and the Upside Down both broke 100 in part because, again, the best chat on the internet.
That's kind of fun. That's the nice thing about doing this is that, you suddenly, people in different, states and stuff and different countries. And, it's all virtual, but still your community is growing. And that's kind of one of the fascinating things about doing this as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, on that note, why don't we welcome those folks who are in the chat right now?
Certainly.
First of all, we've got, excellent. A great friend of the show, a guest host on the show once, Mr. Curtis Judd from Curtis Judd Audio. I would also even call him a YouTube mentor for myself. He's been really great and really supportive in what we've been doing, Jim, and giving me advice and explaining some of the vagaries of YouTube analytics. So
He's the Mr. Miyagi to your Ralph Macchio.
Except that I think I still have a couple of years on him. But yes, he's definitely a lot more experienced and a lot more focus on the things he can control. And a great live stream chat host. This is going to be important because I have something to say on live streams and chats and whatnot in a second. But second, the aforementioned Upside Dan. How you doing, man?
Woohoo!
Welcome back, my friend. And then, of course, we've got 2/3 of the Balmoral Street Research Irregulars. Both Richard and Katie are in the house.
Hey, guys. Woohoo!
Well, welcome everybody. And then, yes, as I intimated, actually just straight up said, this weekend I kind of had, look at this, Alejandro Reyes. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Alejandro. Alejandro hailing from our great neighbor to the south and in Chicago, I believe. How you doing, Alejandro?
Oh, neat. Hi, Windy City.
And you know what? Somebody we also know from another great chat, again, the aforementioned Curtis Judd.
Yes.
So great to see Alejandro. He's actually a film production professional, a sound professional in in the Chicago film production scene. So very cool to see you.
He probably knows the official nickname of Chicago is Bigger Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
That's an excellent note. Of course, I'm sure Alejandro knows that we are just kidding. As a matter of fact, Winnipeg is like its old design. It was mimicked after 19th century Chicago and was called the Chicago of the North. And that's a great point, Jim, that you brought that up because yes, I had a crappy experience this weekend on someone else's chat. Name no names, won't get into the specifics because it's as big as YouTube and the internet is, it's remarkably easy to drill down. So what I do want to say, though, is folks, everybody out there, everyone in the chat, if myself, I can't imagine my wonderful co-host Jim doing it, but on the off chance, once in a blue moon, crazy happens. But if either of us ever, say something that makes you feel uncomfortable, whether you think we intended it or not, feel free just to say, hey, I think that was bad form in the chat or in a comment. If you're uncomfortable doing that, which I totally get, if the individual, my bad experience, I really did look for a way to connect with that person just to be able to say, I thought that was bad form. But you can get a hold of me and and Jim, either one of us, whoever you're more comfortable with, you can DM Jim on Twitter. You can DM me on Twitter. Again, if that's more your MO. You can also find my email on the About page on my YouTube page. So just go there. But either way, we want to know, because you guys are the best chat on the internet. And I think part of that is that we have fun. And every now and then there's a couple of zingers. We really do, try and be cool and kind to each other and respectful of each other. And I just want you guys to know that please, I'm begging you, help me out if I'm ever, behave badly or in bad form. You know what? Again, feel free to call me out immediately or send me a DM later, whatever you're most comfortable with. Anything you want to add to that, Jim?
No, it's a good policy, and yeah, we try to keep it tight and collegial here, I think, it's not been a stretch for us to do either, because the people that chime in are generally, or not generally, but it's been great support that we've got from everyone. So yeah. It's just good to have these things up front, just in case things go, especially this day and age. So if things go a little awry, but just keep us in check.
Yeah. Well, no, well said, Jim. All right. Enough of that kind of potential bummer. Why don't we, first of all, I want to put Richard's comment back again, just for our friends to the south. 16 degrees Celsius is 61 Fahrenheit. And again, for us here in Winnipeg, it's like, balmy.
Yeah, oh yeah. 61 feels like 81.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's time to get into it, Jim. Why don't we start with, bear with me, first thoughts.
First thoughts,
give me yours.
Okay. Well, so I don't ramble. I've been taking to writing them down a little bit. So if it looks like I'm reading, as I've said before, I am. Just for this portion, though. So the lives of Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali gives us enough material for probably several plays, if not a limited series of some kind. This is based on a play, and for me, the whole project feels like a movie play hybrid. Or it sort of feels like a television bottle episode that's been dropped right into the middle of a biopic of some sort. Personally, I found the play part, like the bottle episode part, where they're all in the hotel room together, that was way more engaging than anything that came before or after. The context setting, I felt that I didn't really need, like the scene down in Georgia with Beau Bridges and the Jim Brown character. It was a little bit heart stopping, but I don't know that we needed that. And it took them about a half an hour to get to the hotel. So it's just like, what are you getting to the fireworks factory? That said,
where you can all sit down and discuss your feelings.
Yes. That said, I felt that it started off slow, but it did get rolling. I found that it got better and more engaging as the movie went on. One of to me, and we can discuss this, and it's pretty subtle stuff, so it's not measurable. One of the more interesting aspects of the movie was the sort of counter narrative it proposes. So suddenly Ali, who's this indomitable figure, he's filled with doubt. Malcolm X, there's some desperation to that character. Jim Brown, I wrote down here, contains multitudes. And Sam Cooke is a shrewd businessman. And I those things are known if you read the biographies and stuff, but I think the overall picture of it, Sam Cooke, two of them died violently within a year of that evening. And Sam Cooke's end was particularly messy and yeah, kind of weird. We can talk about it later, but the view that it showed them, it really made them multi-dimensional people as opposed to these sort of untouchable figures of history, and that's, I quite like that. So there's a lot going on in it, and I found that it got better as it went along.
It's interesting, Jim. In some ways, for myself, I enjoyed the gut punch of the moment in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I found after a while I was less engaged. Like I could, in some ways, well, like a lot of plays that have been converted to film, they in a way make better television. And I was doing other stuff because I was like, no, I'm able to pay attention to this as I putter. That said, it obviously had more of an impact on me than I even thought at the time, because I was going, wow, I feel like I'm eating a really healthy meal. I had a nice little appetizer, had some spice in it, and then it's like, boy, this is bland is too harsh, but yeah, that healthy meal, it's not got a lot of flavor, but it's good for me. I know it's good for me. And then all of a sudden, when we kick over to the third act, and right to the end, I was like, oh, apparently it had more of an impact on me than I thought. I got misty at the beginning of the third act. There's a couple of moments at the end where I'm actually tearing up, and those are earned things, and that's an earned reaction. It's maybe I've watched too many movies or whatever, but that's something the film did to me. So, I would still say it's like, boy, this movie based on a play makes a great play. And I think if I was seeing it in the theater, I would be walking away going, oh my God, this was the best play I've seen in I don't know how long. There you go. That's kind of my first couple of, can't really call them hot takes, but takes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up then, quickly, worth your time?
I'd say so. Yeah. Not perfect, and there were some issues that I think we'll probably discuss later on, but I felt that it was worth my time.
I'm the same way. It's worth your time. It's on Amazon Prime. A lovely evening,
Yes.
An interesting evening. I think for, I'm stopping there.
Okay.
Now we'll get more into the meat of the story, or the meat of the film. Just so everyone knows, we are in the spoiler zone now. We should all just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jim, the sound. Start with I thought an easy one, but I'm not sure it's as easy as I initially thought.
Well, for me, one of the best uses of sound in the whole movie was about 2/3 of the way through, when Malx reveals that he's actually that he isn't so dismissive of Sam Cooke, and he's
Beginning
been to
of
the
the
concert,
third act.
and he says, especially Boston concert, and he goes, oh, Boston, and the other two guys say, what happened in Boston? And the whole, so the opening act sabotages the mic, and so he's got no sound, and the band just abandons him. So Sam Cooke is by himself on the stage, and this is that sort of like, why you go out to concerts. But anyway, he's sort of standing there, and he decides to call up the song Chain Gang, and he gets the people in front to help him out with the percussion, and he does an a cappella version. But the sort of the coolest part was Malcolm X is reading the story because he was there, and he said, where I was standing, I couldn't even hear you sing. I just knew that was enough. to see on stage, and the reaction of the crowd was just enough. So there's one shot where it pulls back, like it's sort of close to Sam Cooke, and the camera pulls back, and you hear him less and less and less, and eventually you just hear the sound of the stamping feet and the clapping. And I thought that was
Malcolm X's full POV.
Yeah, and it's just Sam Cooke sort of mouthing the words, but you can't really hear anything. I thought that was a beautiful use of sound. Told a story, kind of, I'd not seen it used in that kind of way, and it was there was an emotional aspect. I mean, it was so technically well done that it affected an emotional response, in you and me. And I thought that was a really, really cool segment. My son walked in on me watching this. He sort of came in from having worked late, and he caught a couple of the scenes, and he was going on up to bed, and he sort of like, oh, good scene. But he was tired. But he saw a couple of those scenes, and they couple hit home. So how about you, sound? How did you?
I agree that, and another earned moment like that was one of my key earned moments where I go, wow, this movie is having more of an impact on me than I thought it was. And also another thing that's earned, because we see that character singing to his wife. We see him noodling. He is established, it's Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke, the character, the movie character, it's established his ability to move, but also to kind of identify voice and what voice is the right voice for a tune for the right crowd and all that. And so I think that's the other reason that it has such great impact. But, and again, another movie, Jim, I really should be tracking some of this stuff. Another movie, all diegetic sound. No soundtrack. It's all, the whole soundscape, it's everything. We're always in their place. Whatever we're seeing, we're hearing it happen in that space, including the music. Even when we think we're not. We are.
Yeah. I loved the stack of, or the tray of records on the credenza or whatever. It was a stereo, like one of those big 500-pound stereos. But there's just this stack of singles, just for your own. I thought, oh, that's cool hotel.
But I think that's it. It's not that it's a cool hotel. It was Malcolm X bringing them because.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. I think because he's bringing it out to make points.
I see. Because he did have the Dylan record. He did, I know, but I was thinking it was just like an ashtray or a coffee maker. Just here's some records, Yeah. But okay.
And then all of a sudden, because when he says he's been to 5 shows, we immediately accept that. We don't even think, really. And I think one of the reasons we immediately accept it is because we've heard the guy play these records specifically to make a point. It's almost I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it, but old Malcolm is not just thinking about Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay at that time.
Cash. Yeah, it's such a neat sort of nickname. But
and again, another diegetic, all in the universe sound. And I'm now starting to wonder, Jim, are we actually just observing what's becoming a big trend in a certain kind of filmmaking? Like if it's a smaller movies, smaller character-driven movies, are we seeing a trend? What do you think? What does everyone else in the chat think on that moment?
Charlie had...
we have 2 sound professionals
there we go.
In our chat right now. Hope they chime in on the subject.
Charlie had the new Zack Snyder project on the other day for 17 hours, and it was like Phil Spector directing a movie. It was just a wall of music constantly. So it sort of is a nice comparison.
Yeah, no, I saw it earlier. That's the story for a later show.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. To compare the two is to compare polar opposites.
It's funny. Just a
And-
quick. Go ahead. Just a quick aside. I'm reading Pictures in a Revolution right now, which is what we talked about with Bonnie and Clyde and all that kind of thing. The big 5 movies, and they were talking about in the early '60s they had Cleopatra, and they said Cleopatra was initially 4 hours and 4 minutes, which is what Justice League is now, and they said the studio desperately wanted to pare it down to 2.5 hours. So it's sort of like the reverse,
Yeah.
the reverse journey that Justice League is taking right now.
And
so.
and the only way that they can do that is they decided, yeah, this isn't going in the theater. It was never going to a theater. Once they committed to that length, yeah, you can't put that. Movie theaters can take that. They can't turn it. And I shouldn't say never get in a theater. Of course, it's going to get into a theater.
Yeah.
Well, that movie deserves a whole show for a number of reasons. Yeah. Coming back to this one, though, yeah, I think it was just what a great example of what you can do with let's call it in camera, but like just in the space sound, and that it could be as moving, as world building as. You don't necessarily need to have. We can get audio emotional cues without it being a soundtrack, and that's not to knock a soundtrack, not to knock an orchestral support at all, but it does show that there are other ways of doing it, and I think this really worked with this, in part because you almost have to set the. You really have to set the scene, and you can be lazy and just slap some tracks of the time. Here, I think they went the right route, especially as they have this Leslie Odom Jr. who obviously can sing like a MF.
Yeah.
Now I can't even say it.
Sorry.
All right. Why don't let's quickly catch up with the chat,
Sure,
Jim, if this is cool
Good
with
idea.
you. And because people are already starting to chime in, and then we'll get into the look, etc. The look and the performances. I'm excited to talk about it, especially the performances. Okay, first of all right. Here's one from Richard. As we watched, I was telling Katie there should be a play. And it was, and it is. I'm kind of wondering if anyone else felt the same way Richard did. If whether they knew it or not, did they go, yeah, this does make a great play? Because I think I would have a lot stronger emotional reaction if I saw this in a theater, as strong as I did. The Upside Down says, I pretty much really like this movie from when they got to the hotel and on. So definitely with you on that, Jim. Here, actually, I'm going to take that one off, Jim.
Sure.
Why, for that scene setting, hey, here's all these characters preparing for whatever they're preparing for, or going through whatever they're going through. Why do you think that didn't hit you the same way?
It wasn't, it wasn't bad necessarily. I just thought it sort of took attention. Like, I would have liked to have seen another half an hour of them in the hotel room. I'm unfamiliar with the play. So I don't know if they have that scene setting, because I think they show each one of them. They show Ali at Wembley fighting Cooper there, Henry Cooper. They have Leslie Odom, Sam Cooke dealing with the Copacabana credits. That's my idea of a nightmare. Just like an unpleasant crowd watching a talented singer. But and so Jim Brown goes back to Georgia and they don't let him in the house. You know, the sort of the white landowner, Beau Bridges, doesn't let him in the house. And who am I missing? Malcolm X, you know, dealing with sort of his domestic scene. And it's not that it was bad. You know, the title card came in One Night in Miami about 17 minutes in. But I felt that it sort of distracted. And there's something, like, I love biopics. I mean, if you can call this a biopic or a historical picture.
I think you can call it biopic, but we'll talk more about that in the story.
Sure. There's a certain element of box checking that biopics do. And sometimes that in itself is not as satisfying as something that's just like a nice long scene.
Let's put a pin on that, because I actually, and put a pin in it, bring it up back later in the show, because I hear what you're saying. I want to make sure I understand that, because I actually appreciated that. I thought they kind of did it a little differently, but we'll come back to that. Okay. Richard L. says, I found the Georgia scene important for giving us the setting, reminding the viewer that times are changing, but not that much. Alejandro says, I wish I could give my opinion on the sound, but I haven't seen the film yet. You check it out. And again, Alejandro, we appreciate you sticking around. You're in the spoiler zone, but that said, it's not like there's some big twist. This isn't a Quentin Tarantino project where all of a sudden the Black Panthers come in on parachutes and rescue Sam Cooke and Malcolm X. It's not that kind of movie. So,
and they mentioned Chicago, if that does anything for you. That's the Winnipeg. Hey, look, there's Winnipeg. Anyway.
And then the Upside Dan voting yes for a show on Zack Snyder's Justice League. More on that later. Okay, Jim, why don't we speaking of box checking, let's talk about let's talk about the look. I wish to continue checking boxes.
Well, I mean, that's sort of occupational hazard for us, I guess, but I mean, here's my hot take. I think is that I'll just put it out there. The Small Axe movies that we watched did historical scene setting in a more subtle way and more effective way than this one did, I think. And I know you had comments on when we watched both the what was it, Red, White, and Blue? The John Boyega one, Red, White, and Blue, and then the
Mangrove.
Mangrove. I always want to call it Magnolia, which would be wrong, but Mangrove. So, and I remember you commenting, and I sort of thought about this when I was watching this. I love, production design. I liked all the sort of the elements, the architecture. At one point, Sam Cooke is wearing, I remember having one, a terry cloth T-shirt, super uncomfortable. But there's various elements. What did I put here? I said terry cloth, the Fontainebleau Hotel. There's a few others, but just little design elements. But whereas you said about the Small Axe movies is that, they did have these elements, but they weren't so on the nose. Like they didn't overly call attention to themselves. This one, it felt a lot more authentic. Like there's something that the Small Axe did that was very low key, but you could tell it was another era, basically.
Yeah.
And this one did feel like a production, whereas Small Axe could have been almost a documentary or something. This one felt like a production that highlighted. So it looked good. It was super colorful. I guess the Miami thing is part of that as well. It wasn't as subtle, I think, as the Small Axe movies were in terms of setting the scene. And again, this is a hard one to sort of put a number to or anything like that. But it was. I still like that elements of it, but I thought that Small Axe did it a little better.
I think I agree with you. One of the things that seems to separate, unlike the sound of this movie, which is really subtle and effective. Here, the cinematography, the look, and it's not just the cinematography, because interesting note, the cinematographer on this picture also was the cinematographer on oh good lord, Old Guard, on the Old Guard, which I wasn't that wowed by. That said, here it is. It's all pretty straight ahead cinematography. The look is very, and I think this is almost a clue of you're going to see a pretty generic look. All the vintage cars that are super shiny, nothing looks used. Nothing looks used. Even that dump of a hotel, not that dumpy.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not feeling dump. I'm feeling dated, perhaps, but not a used place. No chips on anything. It did not have that feel to it, Jim. And yeah, the cars. So it is. I agree with you. There's just not a lot special in the look, other than Sam Cooke's awesome wardrobe, which I totally buy. I buy the wardrobe because it was just a more stylish time. I am a little shocked that no one has noticed that I'm matching Sam Cooke's color scheme.
Oh,
I mean, what the hell, folks? But that said, I agree with you. It was a pretty straight ahead cinematography. The only thing I would give all the professionals involved, including the director, is they're filming a play, and if you be too wowsy with the production design, or if you be too wowsy with the cinematography, then all of a sudden you're going to draw a lot of attention to that. Might as well let the actors do their thing, let them move around, and maybe to praise the cinematography a little, there wasn't a lot of over the shoulder, close up, get the eyes. There was some of that, but not as much as you'd think. They seem to allow the actors to interact with each other, to move with each other.
Yeah.
It seemed to be. Although anyone in the chat didn't see that, love to hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I otherwise, though, I think I'm with you. I don't think we're disagreeing a lot here.
And it's not that it was horrible, and there were some elements of it that were fun, but it just
maybe pedestrian.
It felt like a production. Yeah.
And pedestrian might be a little harsh, might be a little pejorative. Nothing wow. And again, I am gonna pick on the production design a little. Again, so clean, so unused, so shiny. Yeah, I'm not, even when they go to the bar and you get that nice bright neon, or not the bar, the
liquor store.
The liquor store. Thank you. Yeah. And everyone, although you do see pictures of the time, people just dressed in general a little more formally when they're out, a little more European in that sense of, I'm going outside. I want to dress because I'm going outside. I will be in the public realm. And so give it some points for realism there, but yeah, there you go. It's almost like there's so little interesting going on there. You're just left with a big sort of shrug. Hey, well, it had a luck. Moving on. Yeah, and a great comparison to the Red, White, Blue movies. Yeah. Or the Small Axe movies.
Yeah.
Quick one. Oh, actually, two quick ones. First of all, the Upside Down's got to go in a few minutes. Watch Wolfwalkers. It's a cartoon. How could you not watch it? The Upside Down. Thanks so much for popping by, and look forward to watching one of your videos shortly. Sometimes I'm holding off on watching my fellow reviewers I don't know if you do this, Jim. Sometimes I'm like, oh, we might look at that one, or I'm about to look at that one. I want to keep my mind clear of other opinions. So that is not to say that I don't enjoy these guys and their take on it. And I always like to circle back to their take.
Yeah. Sean Lost in the Reel. That guy, he does about 10 a day. I was like, how does he do it?
He covers everything.
I'll be thinking, I want to see that. I'll go onto YouTube. It's like, oh, here's my take on it. It's just like, what?
Yeah. When all of a sudden it's like you're walking through a mall and you don't want to buy anything, and so you're looking down and you're almost putting. It's like, don't show me anything. I just want to be here for what I want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, here's Alejandro mentions. Ali and Martin Luther King lived in Chicago for a while.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay, so we've taken care of the look, and now let's get into, now we're starting to get into the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
The performances.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, you go first.
I mean, your sort of default thing is to say, oh, let's nominate this guy and this guy and this guy. I mean, that's that, your approval is whether something or not is award worthy. That's sort of the instant default, reaction. I like seeing people that I am unfamiliar with, and I'd seen the fellow played Jim Brown before in stuff. I mean, these guys have all done other things. The guy who played Malcolm X, Kingsley Ben-Adir, that was Jim Brown. Yeah. The guy who played Malcolm X, Kingsley Ben-Adir, holy crackers! I propose another sort of way to mark off a great performance is that, would you see something else that this person is in? I would really like to see more stuff that Kingsley Ben-Adir does. I think Sean actually mentioned too his performance. He called it out during our Oscar or Golden Globes one. He said, in terms of snubs, who might be considered a snub. But yeah, I mean, that guy, he subtle and he kind of could turn on a dime, and he's British, but he does this, the voice of Malcolm X, really weird. Every one of them had strengths. Leslie Odom was the one that was given the Oscar nomination. I suspect, he's sort of value added.
2 Oscar nominations.
Singing voice. Oh, for the original song as well. Yeah. Which comes over the closing credits because it's got to be original, right? You can't just say, can't do change is going to come every year. but yeah, so I mean, they each had their elements. The Eli Goree, I believe is the name, and I'm mispronouncing, I'm sure, is Canadian. The one that played Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think he's done some Canadian TV. In fact, I think he was in "Da Kink in My Hair," which is actually how it's spelled. But I was looking at his thing the other day, and they all had strengths. I thought that Aldis Hodge, I should have memorized these, but Aldis Hodge, yeah, I thought he had a really great presence because he was. I said earlier, he contains multitudes. That's sort of a Whitman reference, but I mean, the overall sort of idea of Jim Brown is that he was a beast. He was a beast on the field, and he was sort of just basically a strong guy. And this one, he's smart and he's thoughtful, and he I don't know. I just thought it was each one of the performances brought other things out. It gave us a chance to see these historical guys in another way, and I can't say that I elevate one over the other. Yeah, it's really tricky. And it's interesting too. because earlier on, I'll just add this one last point, is Leslie Odom Jr. playing Sam Cooke. Initially, I thought, he's just sort of, he was a little bit chippy, and he was a little bit, oh, you guys are late, and I've been waiting here, and they didn't really give him tons to do, but that changed over the course of the movie. And there's this one great scene where he says, bullshit that I'm not contributing to the community. Bobby Womack wrote this song that the Rolling Stones did, and Bobby was feeling bad about it until his residual check rolled in 6 months later. And he goes, do they want any more of my songs? And the way he tells that story, it's a little bit of pride, and he's trying to sort of set Malcolm X in his place. Yeah, that was a great scene. I thought that was a really nicely done piece. And so his performance grew over the movie. How about you?
I agree with you, everything. So I do want to draw attention, though, to an unsung performance, something that isn't getting enough attention, in part because of the great performances of what are really 4 leads, Jim.
Yes.
It's not, and that's a tough one. And it's not the only movie where they were in this bind of who do we nominate, who do we push forward, which is kind of amazing. And I would imagine from an American context, also amazing. It's like, here are not 1, not 2, not 3, but I don't have enough fingers and thumbs, honestly. Like, there's 6 I'm thinking of right now in 2 movies of African-American killer performances in killer roles. You got Judas and the Black Messiah. You got this. But I do want to I want to sing the praises of Lance Reddick as Kareem X. And Jim, I was just blown away, absolutely blown away at how effective he was at both. You're kind of like, is he protecting them or is he threatening them? Is he like, they really, him and Kingsley Ben-Adir playing Malcolm X. And again, for those of folks who haven't seen it, Lance Reddick plays Kareem X, a bodyguard / aide to Malcolm X. And but you get immediately, he's not necessarily just working for Malcolm X, and he's both menacing and supportive. There's this tension there all the time when he's in the scene. All of a sudden it's like, everyone's riveted by him because he has he's just got such a presence that's at times they're hugging, at times but tension. I think it is because there's so many amazing performances. You run out of, you're just like, where, Jesus, it never ends. Like, but I think Mr. Reddick deserves a bit of a shout out just for being, and especially for what is a pretty small part that most of the time he's just standing there. Like, that's his whole thing. Stand, look, like, it's not even, are you all right, brother Malcolm? It's like, and what he can deliver in 3 words. And I mean, he's got a great presence as an actor and everything, but he really is able to bring up the tension and the menace. While at the same time, you're not convinced you're not, you're stuck, right? It's like, where does this guy's loyalties lie?
Is he Elijah's plant, or like, is he watching Malcolm X, or is he watching out for Malcolm X?
And I think in this case, like, he delivers that. Part of the reason that performance is so nuanced is because he's doing both. It's that. So there's a tension in him as well. Just an amazing performance that the movie doesn't depend on, but it's a great spice in what's otherwise at times a very healthy meal. And then you're like, whoa, some hot sauce.
There's that great sort of little bit where they're on the rooftop and they're sort of arguing on the rooftop, and he comes to see if Malcolm's okay, and
because they're starting to fight.
Jim Brown goes like, you do not want to call me out. And so he just leaves and he sort of angrily opens the door and lets it bounce. And you know, that contrasts against brother Jamal, who's the young guy who asked for autographs. You know, these two guys that are watching is quite a different, they each have kind of different stories. You know, one guy's all soft and the other guy's all hard too. So a lot going on with that.
And he did fine as well. Like, I mean, not a lame performance in the bunch. I believe it's Antoinette Robinson. She plays the wife of Sam Cooke, like the actual wife of Sam Cooke. Is also the wife, interesting note, folks, is Leslie Odom Jr.'s spouse.
Yeah.
They were married back in 2012, I believe. You know, so it's this
pretty
kind
cool.
of neat mix. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I don't know. There's only so many superlatives I can hurl at this cast.
yeah, they were really good. I meant to sort of look up other things that Kingsley Ben-Adir had done. I think he's done theater, but even just what he sort of looks like. If you read the autobiography of Malcolm X, they do talk about his reddish hair and you know, the fact that he tried to straighten it when that was the fashion. But in any case,
which is also explored really well and humorously in the Malcolm X, based on the autobiography of Malcolm X. Starring Ben Kingsley. Here's Mr. Ben-Adir's. He's known for the OA. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
High Fidelity, Peaky Blinders. Okay. And what else do we got here?
King Arthur.
Oh my goodness, poor bugger. Oh well, that obviously didn't hurt him. He took a paycheck and kept moving on with his acting life. Good for him. Yeah. So in some of this, A Higher Loyalty plays Barack Obama. Makes sense. He's got that kind of stature, kind of that tall, thin, fair complexion.
Listen.
Which is, well, we're going to get into the story and the meaning in a second. So let me pull back on that a bit. But yeah, these guys were all, they're all crackerjack, Jim.
Yeah.
Crackerjack.
No, it was great. And, you know, too, the other thing is, I think, you know, there's probably been productions like this in the past, but not tons of them. And you know, the other, you know, a few years back, I was watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I thought, well, these, you know, two black actors are talking to each other. They're both cops, and they're both talking about, you know, whatever case they were on. It was, of course, Holt and Terry Crews's character. And I just thought, you know, you don't have to have like the solid white cast. I think is sort of hopefully a product of the past, but it's you know, these new faces, these new performers. It's nothing but interesting. You know, I think it's great to see, and great opportunity for them.
That reminds me, and I'll put it in a pinned comment. I saw a great African-American YouTuber talking about racism and sexism in The Good Place, how it's discussed and how it's not discussed, which could almost inform further. If you wanted to dig further, check it out. And I will. I'll pin it in a comment after the show, because the guy has a really neat perspective that, I mean, I only saw it the other day, and I don't want to paraphrase him because I'll bugger it up. And here, let's listen to what the middle-aged white guy thinks about African-American views on racism and representation in media. Okay.
I guess that would be the mansplaining. Is it? The man? Anyway.
Yeah. I'm laughing.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you.
Heck, you could do a whole comic bit on that. You could see a Mad TV doing that, or the Wayans brothers doing that, Dave Chappelle doing that. The mansplaining. Damn, that's just a good bit. Okay. Why don't we move towards? Let's get into the story, man. For the next 10 minutes, I'm going to just constantly refer, hey, man. So what's your take? Or, hey, Jim, are you still there? Looks like you're...
Sorry.
Oh, signal's back.
Yeah, I'm buffering a little bit here, so... Am I moving? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, sorry, I was just sort of wavering here. So the story... yeah, I mean, there was a lot to cover in terms of how it was told. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I thought the first half an hour, the sort of scene setting was bad necessarily. It just took sort of some of the hotel. I'm sure I'd love to know more about the play to see how different it was. But yeah, I would have. I mean, you can sort of cut what a play would do would be they would cover all that area, all their adventures before, the bad experience at the Coba, the bad experience in Georgia. Ali almost.
I could see it be handled as they're checking in somewhere, or walking up to the room. Oh, you're not going to believe. So I heard you really bombed at the Copa.
On the other hand, you avoid it. When you show it, you don't have to deal with it, and so you avoid all that exposition. Maybe so. Maybe that's something in favor of it. But yeah, I thought that the way that they handled it is that they showed a little bit of a different side of each one of the four. I mentioned that earlier, but yeah, I don't want to say it's as simple as like a Wizard of Oz. This one doesn't have a brain. This one doesn't have a heart. It's not like that, but rather, all if you dig deep, you're going to see a multifaceted human being. But if you just take the real basic stuff, you got this guy with the swagger, this with this strength.
Oh,
obviously.
We have swagger?
Yeah, like the foot like a butterfly, sting like a bee stuff. Like those things. It's almost like, what are your first impressions of these guys? Sam Cooke, he seems really together. He would die in about 10 months. Like, he didn't even hit Christmas that year. He was staying at a place called La Hacienda in Los Angeles. And they figure he's probably drunk or maybe under the influence of something, but he was trying to break into the manager's office, a woman manager who I think was African-American also, and he was getting violent towards her. So she shot him. But there's other theories out there that it was a cover-up and that kind of thing. But so there's sort of a little bit of a, I want to say, counter narrative that they use. Malcolm X, who's usually shown as a figure of confidence and assuredness, he seems kind of like he breaks down, which I don't think. I can't remember the Spike Lee movie. 3 hours, by the way, 3 hours plus. But back from 1992 as well. That was almost 30 years ago. But I don't think that he's been portrayed as vulnerable before. And who am I missing here? And Jim Brown, just as he seemed almost like a strong, but he was a little bit of a gentle, a man of letters. Like, he was a bit of an entrepreneur. He was looking to establish a movie career. So they add something to each one of these historical figures that I think is kind of not your typical portrayal of them, but kind of interesting. Anyway, how about you?
Again, it's got a beginning, middle, and end. I'm going to, let's say, maybe not praise, but, I'm going to praise the setup, actually, in part because it doesn't show them, like you say, it's part of this counter narrative, and right from the get-go, they, instead of showing, usually in something like this, we're kind of seeing an early sign of greatness. Mm-hmm. Whereas here we're seeing how great they are. It's a little more, it's later. It's not the beginning, the child Ali, the child Cassius Clay, and he's obviously destined for greatness. We see them, and also weak. Like Sam Cooke has a temper right off the bat, and while at the same time a bit of self awareness, a little. The Cassius Clay gets knocked down because he is a little arrogant and a little overconfident because he's 20, a young man. Malcolm X is, and the one note on story and character development, I was like kind of, are we sure about that? I thought and this could have been an actor's choice or a director choice. I'm not sure, but presenting, it kind of sucks that in a way his relationship with his wife, with his spouse, where she is, at times you got the vibe. It's like, yeah, he's being put upon by his wife, where I'm like, did you have to? I felt that. I'm not sure if anyone did. I felt that, and I'm like, did you have to go there? She's not you could just show them both being upset about what's going on, supporting each other, instead of this, like, at times, like, she's looking at him like she's judging him, and it's like, was she? Like, I don't know, and I'm not sure it was needed to just show the stress he was under. He did have, he was committed as basically he's a preacher, he's a preacher and, a preacher and an activist, and the stress he was under, all you need are FBI, the dark side of the Nation of Islam, that kind of thuggish kind of part of that scene, and that's and the fact that he's got a family who could get caught in the crossfire, three young daughters. I think that's enough without it making look like the wife's on his ass. Now, mind you, I may have been and I'd love to hear from the chat. I may have been misreading those two, because there's maybe two scenes with her and him in the same room. But yeah, I'd agree with you. Otherwise, they all look vulnerable right from the get-go. We see them already being great.
Yeah.
So these people are great, but they're also human beings. And so I liked that. I liked the fact that Jim Brown, and one of the great, and points to Beau Bridges for his delivery. Like, and it comes out of left field. Like, just left field. It's like, just a sec. The wind, I gotta.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
I was feeling queasy.
And those are great story moments, and I think we needed some setup before we were in the hotel. So I liked it, but I agree with you, Jim. And I think it's almost, you need that, because then they use every character, both their strengths and weaknesses, against each other. And so this elevates it as a biopic. I think it is in a weird way, although it's one fake day, we get to examine the complexity of these human beings in a way most biopics can't. They, at best they have, and then he had trouble with drinking, but he picked himself up, or, they've got a different narrative, whereas here, they can actually push against each other and explore, like, they can explore complexity that I can't say it was explored as well in what was a remarkable film that I still remember very clearly, Malcolm X, Spike Lee's Malcolm X. Yeah. Even when he almost burns himself as he's trying to, it was a hair straightener, I think, that was, he was screwing around with or whatever. In a comic, yet not satirical, that black comedy, that kind of comedy with a point. It's like, that cuts, the comedy that cuts.
So
I thought that worked. And as much as I felt like the whole second act was I'm watching television, which is really just a televised play. Obviously, it had an effect on me because you have that moment where they come back to the hotel room and it's like, okay, it's all this tension. And the way Malcolm X relieves that tension by having that conversation, you're just like, wow, we're in great hands. And the third act, although, again, I'm not sure I'm not clear enough on his history, but it was almost like, and Malcolm X is on his own, and then he got shot.
Yeah. And
otherwise,
a year almost to the day so that was, I think, February 25th, 64, and he was killed, I think, February 21st, 65. Yeah. So, yeah, that's something else. But the other aspect of Malcolm X that I liked was his enthusiasm for things, because usually they just show him as this orthodox kind of, fire and brimstone kind of guy, as Jim Brown says.
The preacher with a capital P. Yeah.
But he and I looked this up afterwards, he was into photography. So he did appreciate, like, he always brought his camera. He says, if I don't have my Hasselblad or whatever it was.
A Shutterbug.
Yeah. He had his Nikon, and it was nice to see, and he loved boxing. And apparently he was a big boxing fan. It was nice to see him, he was obviously enthusiastic about being a Muslim, but he was also, he wasn't just, like a one note kind of guy. Like, he did have other interests. And I sort of, as a guy who yanks his camera around a lot, I sort of appreciated that as well. But, yeah.
And I think that was really achieved. It was done well in this. It didn't feel, fake or anything. What did you think about the adaptation from, it's so obviously such a well-designed play.
Yeah.
Perfect subject matter for a play.
The setup, sometimes, you read those one-line setups and you just say, this is something about da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you think, whoa, right. Immediately, it's like in one sentence, you're like, okay, that sounds juicy.
You get it.
Yeah, and this is sort of the beautiful. It's only when I started, I thought, oh yeah, they got to talk about something for 2 hours. I wonder what it is. And, it was just this sort of coming to their own crossroads and figuring out where to go from there in relation to everything that was going on outside. But
let me ask you this. Oh,
beautiful setup. Yeah. I was just going to say, conclude by saying beautiful setup.
Yeah, but do you think though? Could this have been adapted in any other way that would have been a bit more cinematic? Or are you just, the nature of it, it's almost more like deluxe television than it is a film, a piece of cinema?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. That's sort of a poser. Would there be any other way to film this? I've gone to see.
How it would have been done? Would have been a road movie if you'd wanted to do that. They drive to one crazy night and little episodes, and they pull up to somewhere and they leave somewhere.
Yeah.
Would it have made it better though?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What was the
cinematic, but not necessarily better?
You could do like a Martin Scorsese. What was the Griffin Dune movie where he's just wandering the streets of New York all night? I'm
going to look it up right away. But continue.
But just have that with the 4 famous black guys, and they go around and have adventures and meet Rosanna Arquette, and get in trouble with a bartender and
zaniness.
Yes, hijinks. No, I was going to say that
After Hours.
After Hours.
After Hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say that, I wonder, almost like one time my wife and I went to see the production of Frankenstein, where they filmed it in London, and Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller were playing. It was just a two-hander. It was one night, they switched roles anyway. They were each familiar with both parts. So one night Cumberbatch would play the monster and Miller would play Dr. Frankenstein, and they'd switch. So we watched that, and it was a screen. It was wasn't really adapted. They just basically filmed the stage.
Shot the play.
And it was, yeah. And it was, we did that once. Would I go see something like that again? Maybe, but I would be curious. Like, this is something I would love for MTC to pick up, or the Warehouse, which is another theater, for those who don't know, in Winnipeg.
Both run by the same regional theater production outfit, the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre.
Yes, yeah.
The Queen did drop that on them when she was here in 2010.
Give that designation, yeah.
I agree with you. Like, I think as good as it is, it's great television. I don't think it's great film. And that's okay. It can be great television. I'm not sure. Like, if I saw this in the theater, I got to admit, I'd probably be pretty antsy through the second act. And so would the third act has had the impact? Would I have gotten weepy, or I went, oh, thank God this is coming to an end? Maybe not thank God, but it really is. It's such a healthy granola, or I don't know, like thinking like some Mennonite cuisine, local religious,
high fiber,
high fiber and good for you, but you're not going, I'm in flavor country. So whereas in a play where you're seeing them argue and get in each other's face for that long in a play, I think I'd just be riveted. I'd be like, I can't look away. Am I about to watch a train wreck? Am I, and so I think there's some elements of that just doesn't quite work. Maybe it's just not the nature of the piece is so. Yeah, sometimes it's like, quit trying to make that bicycle into a car. We can make it a really fast bicycle, but it's not going to be a car, and that's maybe not too harsh an analogy, but I think you know where I'm going. We've got. Let's just say a quick hello.
Certainly.
To Vlad 65.
Woohoo!
Welcome, Walt. Welcome to the show. We haven't seen you in a few weeks. Of course, Walt's a regular correspondent and always a great suggester, and you'll see some of his suggestions coming up once we get through Oscar season here. But good to see you back on the show, in the chat. Back in the chat. Here's a question for you then. But there was it's not like there's any plot holes or anything. Like it was a solid beginning, middle, and end. I'm now going to go back and praise the setup even more now, actually, Jim, and say, if we didn't have it, I think it would have been a much shorter movie. I don't think it could have lasted 2 hours. You couldn't, without that first act, or let's say you truncated it a lot, you couldn't give it all over to the hotel. Like, I just think you could only have so much hotel. They're damn near at the max. Maybe leaving you wanting more is the better way to go. Maybe a bit more of an epilogue. I don't know. I'm not sure it would have worked.
The one of the things about sort of getting through the second act is I was a little worried that it would be just sort of just Malcolm X and Sam Cooke arguing, and the other two guys would be forgotten. And they incorporated everyone into that. And then, Cassius Clay had doubts about becoming Muhammad Ali, and they sort of incorporated that in. It should be said too that he was
that. Then, Jim, I think that's a perfect time for us to move into the meaning, which I think has got so much more meat. Continue.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was just going to say that Ali at the time might have had the most swagger amongst the four, but he was also the youngest. I think he was. Did he say he was 22 at the time?
22.
And the others.
He was 22 when he won when he beat Sonny Liston the first time.
Yeah. And James Brown was 28, and the other two gentlemen were in their 30s there. So, he was sort of the baby of the family. I listened to, there was an episode of Fresh Air that I listened to earlier today, the NPR show, and he said what they did was they took archival interviews and talked to the biographers of the four guys, and they said Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were like sort of big brother, little brother for a period of time. And then when sort of as an end note, when Malcolm X split with Elijah Muhammad, Ali was very just sort of like, he sort of cut him out of his life.
You're dead to me.
You're dead to me. And in fact said something like, about his death, maybe he was asking for it or something super cold. But yeah, so that and there were, the scene when he does
young and felt like his brother had betrayed him.
Yeah, and he looked over to the seat at the end and saw that it was empty, where he should have been sitting when his ceremony, when he I guess did officially change his name. Yeah. The other thing too, I don't think I'd seen, and I think this was an important element. I know we're talking about meaning here. We hadn't really, there's been calls to prayer that I've seen in movies and things like that, but there's an extended period where Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X are praying, and it's a sequence, and they show other stuff happening while they're praying, and I thought that was kind of effective too. And again, something that a large part of us don't know anything about. There were certain hand movements and stuff. I don't want to mimic it, but that I was unfamiliar with, and I think it
that's
sort of
part
falls.
of the ritual.
Yeah. But we know about the rug, and we know about the facing Mecca and stuff like that. But the words they said, and there was a lot of detail. It must have been a conscious choice to have that. As a little bit of an extended bit.
I thought it was part of the meaning.
Yeah,
I
thought it was
here.
Cool.
This is a point they're trying to make. You didn't need it to advance the plot. Maybe a little revealing of character, but here's where the filmmakers are making a very real choice, a very purposeful choice to say, yes, they were Muslim. They were not. Yeah. This wasn't It wasn't some sort of proper, well, you're Muslim like I'm Christian and I go to church on that. They were practicing, especially Malcolm X. Like after at this point, shortly after he was in, and I know they weren't hanging out that day, but it was shortly after that he went on his Hodge to Mecca, did do a lot of traveling, met a lot of people, expanded his idea of what a Muslim could be, it wasn't, just bound in the Nation of Islam, and, came back, all reports, a changed man. But that it wasn't like he was never insincere in his faith. And I thought that was, and I think that was part of the point the filmmakers wanted to make, is make sure that he was a religious man,
Yeah. There's a nice little bit. There was a nice little note when they were crossing their arms, sort of like this, and Ali had it the wrong way, and he just sort of said, he just sort of went the other way. And it was sort of a nice little moment there.
Yeah. What did you? There's so many, because it's not just about these individuals. I really do think, in a way, what we're seeing is the larger conflict. Well, I'm going to use this word, conflict, but the larger conflict with any community, especially an oppressed one, where there's ideas of membership. That both Jim Brown, the character Jim Brown, saying, "Well, you're yellow," and it's like, "What, coward?" Malcolm X called him many things, but I wouldn't. It's the complexion. That's and that idea of gatekeeping and who's black. And then, of course, he says that, and he goes, "Are you just trying to prove something to us?" And it was like, well, that's a dick move, man. But I think there's, like, all that thing is intentional. Like, in a way, this is a great way to see that these communities are not monoliths, and that identity and who is and who isn't, and what does it mean to be a good, African American, or good? Are you serving the community? What are you doing with your wealth? And that kind of debate. And also almost are we about fundamental change, or are we about, hey, if black people make more money, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, I actually wrote down the whole thing, and it was sort of a neat. They do this all the time in movies, even in real life. It's when the girls go off to the washroom together, the guys get to chat. But in this case, it was, I think, Sam Cooke and Muhammad Ali breaking free, leaving Malcolm X and Jim Brown alone to chat, and Jim Brown picks up on the fact that there's some other stuff going on for Malcolm. And then that's when he brought up, and I even wrote it down. Hey, Jelly Duck. The light skin, dark skin debate. And I thought, whoa, like, what's going on? Where's this? This can't, head anywhere good, I don't think. But
it's a dinner party, and you're like your buddy.
Yeah,
soup
exactly.
Or something. I'm really sorry. Anyway, you were saying about your new patio.
But there was some. I mean, I think it probably. I mean, once again, this is all speculative. So when the playwright is thinking, what are they going to talk about? I think that's one of the obvious differences. And I think it was back in the time. There's a movie coming out called.
But I think that's intentional,
out already.
Jim.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
The movie that's coming out. Sorry.
Called Passing, and it's about the whole light skin, dark skin thing, and it was kind of an interesting element. Like, I thought, okay, you guys got enough to worry about, and then Jim Brown drops this on Malcolm X and goes, some people have it, some of them have it easier than others. And what are you talking about? And I was like, but
in the same time, sometimes you're getting, hassled more by other black guys because you're not black enough, but I think also just like, I think it's totally intentional and done well. Like, it's one of those times when it's like, whoa, this is, in any other movie, I'd think it was obvious. Like if they were fictional characters or something, but it's like, no, I'm going to take these very real people who in a way exemplify achievement, and I'm going to put them in the same room, and of course they're going to talk about this. Of course the preacher's going to go, what are you doing for the movement? That is the preacher's role. Of course the others are going to be, hey, I did this myself. That, you don't know what I've done. Or why do I have to do? Or there's going to be the younger brother. Like, I think that in a way Kemper kind of skips. He avoids the problem of us being preached at, first of all, by they're going after each other. And not in a nasty way or anything, but they are each are getting on each other about this stuff, which is a debate in any community. All this stuff we hear now, and it isn't just in the African American community. There are aspects of that conversation that are unique to it, but not the overall conversation. I think the way he did it is just, in a way, goddamn brilliant.
Mm.
Well, at the same time, because it's so feeling and so emotional and it can get so personal that we do kind of explore these people as human beings as well.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I think that may have been part of the intent as well, to kind of.
Well, I was just going to say, none of these guys are, to achieve the success that they achieved, none of them are shrinking violets, right? And so they're the kind. I mean, aside from that sort of that ball-breaking, ball-busting character of a lot of sort of male friendships, they're throwing his camera around on the roof and that sort of thing, is that sort of getting close to being a total asshole to each other, but just sort of, dialing it back, just before things get too intense. But that sort of, ball breaking aspect of male friendship. And then this one, I mean, yeah, they would bring these things up, like these they would challenge each other, I think. I mean, these are competitive guys, right? And I thought it was interesting, if presented with a blank sheet and saying that these four guys got together, what direction would you take with that?
Yeah.
And I mean, well, we got to split some of them up sometime, and we'll leave these two in the hotel room to discuss that. It's kind of an interesting process.
Well, much like I really did, leaning back into the story, there's a great story moment where Malcolm X leaves to get his camera. I have to go get my camera.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to go make a phone call. And is there something wrong with the phone in the room? It's like, I don't want anyone listening to my call.
And that was Lance Reddick.
Pardon?
That was brother...
Kareem X.
Kareem, yeah.
Well, he says, and that's it. So, I don't want anyone to listen to my call, alluding to, but it's a nice little double entendre.
Yeah.
Intentional or not, but also I do actually think part of there's multiple things going on there, and part of the way I read that scene was this character, like Malcolm X, says, no, they can all be together for a bit. I just want them. I've started something, but they need to have a chat about it. And I do need to call my wife. I need to talk to my kids. Look, the FBI, because of course the FBI. And I think that's one thing that maybe, other than that one moment, coming back to the scene setting, Jim, and maybe one of the things that is missing from this film is there isn't just how much, I think when the majority of us think of the 60s, we're actually thinking of 68 and when a lot of that upheaval came out. But this is, Salmo's only a couple years before. It was becoming quite violent. The police, the FBI were only cranking up their really violent pressure on these folks. And, no better example of what bastards they were. He was one of the most spied upon, watched people in America at that time. And yet they had no idea who shot him to death.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
It's just, would none of us three people spying on them. We were shocked. We all went for coffee, except that guy. Yeah. I was in the bathroom for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I really thought it was the pipes banging away. I had diarrhea. Yeah, I think that's maybe one of those things too, because even I couldn't imagine any of those other three saying, "Oh, Malcolm's being paranoid." Not in 1965. Not African Americans in 1965.
Thanks.
They would have been, if anything, it might have said something along the lines of, we're all being spied on. What are you lying about?
Yeah, exactly.
We're all under surveillance. We all have an FBI file because we're successful black people.
I can.
It's like automatically the IRS says, "Oh, this black person earned this much money. Send it over to the FBI so they can start the file."
Yeah, that would have been Hoover then too, wouldn't it? Or how long did he last for?
Yeah.
But,
Oh yeah, he's into
Yikes.
the 70s.
Oof.
That nasty piece of work. But
Yeah,
but
no
in a
kidding.
context where everyone be racist,
Yeah.
as opposed
And-
to
and-
the colorblind Nirvana we see now.
Well, the
let me
whole-
let me give that the eye roll it deserves. There we go.
The whole Billie Holiday, we don't want you singing "Strange Fruit." Okay, well maybe stop killing so many people. Would be nice.
Nope.
But,
we're gonna create a whole drug war.
that song really upsets me. Oh, you know what upsets me? Yeah.
It's interesting on this note, Vlad65 comments, remember the very recent news about the FBI and Malcolm's death. Seems the movie was made a bit too soon. I'm unaware of that news. Does this ring a bell to you, Jim?
Well, I was looking last night. Of course, I watch it, and then I go onto the computer for an hour to look up things. And the one guy that had been one of the gunmen at the Audubon Ballroom in New York, which is where he was killed, was shot by one of his bodyguards in the leg, so they were able to subdue him. And he actually just died last month.
And of course the NYPD were involved. Okay, yes, continue.
Yeah, he just died last month. So I'm not sure. I think Vlad's talking about something a little deeper there, but that's
I'm
the
bringing
one
it
thing
up
that
on the. I'm bringing
Yeah.
it up on a screen right now. Malcolm X family says letter shows NYPD and FBI conspired in his murder. Ex undercover officer claims in posthumous letter he was pressured to lure activist security men into committing crimes. Folks. I'll pin this below.
I'd like to read it too.
Yeah, we're all getting a little off topic, but and Jim's disappeared.
I just got to plug something in here. My computer's dying, so there we go. All right,
Okay.
everything's back to normal.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Vlad. And yes, I no longer subscribe to the Washington Post because my $1 a month thing ran out, and I can't afford more than $1. So, but the Guardian picked it up, and that they just beg you for money like they're PBS. Okay. Is there anything in this film? Like when you think about the meaning, like one of the things that comes out to me, Jim, is, and it's a tough one, like how do you remove the authors from this? So I think there was almost I don't actually know. Do you get a vibe on where the playwright, and he's also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, Mr. Kemper. He's nominated for that. Mr. Kemper, Kemp Powers. And of course, Regina King, the director. Where do you think they come down on that debate? Like, that if you're to put them in a way, because there's almost like you've got 4 quadrants there. Where would you come down? Like, where do you think they're coming down? On
what? On which aspect?
I think there is a debate within that room.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to what are you doing for the movement? What are you doing? And yeah, she's the woman made this film in our context, in our time, pre George Floyd, but in Black Lives Matter, in Trump America, she is fully aware of what's going on. And she made this movie with this in mind. Where do you think she falls? Is she more Malcolm X or more Sam Cooke, because I think almost see them as having the main conflict.
Yeah.
Not to say Jim Brown and there are 4 poles, but the biggest difference on this, I seem to think is Sam Cooke versus Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Where would you say they fall in this?
I think they, if you had to say who's the main character, is very tricky, but only by, I think, not by a lot, but I think it would probably be Malcolm X. Like, he seems to be the one that they focus on quite a bit in this. And you just by gradients.
Certainly the moral center, let's say.
And sort of the most stuff that's sort of going on internally with him. The whole thing is supposed to lead essentially to the song "Change Is Gonna Come," and the famous Sam Cooke song. The timeline for that is a little bit different because I believe he had the idea for that song before that. So, Malcolm X said, "This is what this white kid from Minnesota, Bob Dylan, is doing. This should have been one of us who did a song like Blown in the Wind." What? So I guess what the
in
progression
the movie
is,
though, Sam Cooke says he's written he does say to Jim Brown, he's written it. He just hasn't performed it yet.
The one of the interesting things, and I'll maybe we'll get a link to the NPR interview up. They were talking to a biographer of Sam Cooke. They said that song, usually he had to work at his songs, at his little sort of romance songs and stuff. That song, he described it to his friends as coming to him completed in a dream. And he also said, he didn't know the source of it. He said it just all came to him. And it said that he felt, how did they put it? He felt that it was a sign of death. Kind of like it was almost like what could he do with his time left or something to that effect. And he died by the end of that year. But I think this whole thing is, the path of this movie is that all this leads to change is going to come.
Yeah.
And so I think they've had to massage some of the facts here and some of the timeline, but I think they think that sort of Malcolm got in his head a bit, but he had already been thinking about doing something as monumental as Bob Dylan had. So it was a little bit of maybe he was just nudged a bit by Malcolm X to get away from the silly ballads and the love songs.
Or at least to do this one. Another interesting note on that tune, apparently the guy who usually did the arrangements, the instrumentation and that, they usually, I guess, because it was his guy for that, they usually work quite closely together. He said, apparently, unique in his experience working with them, that Sam Cooke said, "Here, just do what the song demands." I believe that's the quote, "Do what the song demands." And it was the first time he basically trusted him, saying, "You know what, I just do what the song demands." And which is, I think, another interesting aspect to how that song was created. I think that's super cool. And it's still, it's still such a great song. Like they played the other song they played of Cooke's. That's where the tears come up, right?
Yeah.
The way they sewn how it was sewn into the narrative.
Yeah. They played that other "You Send Me," and I'm honest you do, like that whole song. And the middle part of it's not bad. It's one of those songs that I've heard so many times that I'm sort of tired of it. But that "Change Is Gonna Come" still seems to me very fresh and very poignant. It just is just such a great.
It's even working on the Chain Gang, especially the way they did it. That
Yes.
acapella with the crowd. Damn.
Yeah.
I started to get misty there, and then by the end of the piece, when he's singing that and Odom's delivery of it, just mwah. So, but just to kind of close off meaning, did you see, like, for me, I think one of the things I find frustrating about the way our neighbors to the south look at change is they really lean into, and we saw it recently with Don Lemon, big CNN commenter, contributor guy, went talking about a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests over the course of the summer and the murder of George Floyd, that he's black celebrities. Where's Dave Chappelle? Where are these black celebrities? They got to step up. Mm-hmm. And I thought Dave Chappelle's reply, his pushback to that was, they don't need to hear from me. The voice is coming from the streets. And he did a really great job, and he did one of those not goofy. He did a great Netflix special where he's like, okay, I will speak to this after, like, he took time to, again, like, I mean, Dave Chappelle's one of those unique figures in American celebrity culture or American culture, pop culture, or whatever, that he really does. Like, there's a guy who seems to really get, it's like, I'm a rich guy. I'm not affected the way these people are. And he's walking the walk as best as he can and talking the talk as best as he can. But that the voice is from the streets. And this is the one thing that, and I'm not sure, like, it's not even talked about, so I think it's unintended, but there's this sort of assumption in American mainstream discourse, including film, where it's, well, we need role models who will lead us. And I gotta admit, I'm like, has that worked for you that well? These are people to admire. Muhammad Ali, and there's a guy, walked the walk, took the hit. You know, he actually walked in solidarity with, took the hit, didn't, props to him, legit. That said, these are not the folks who create change. They can help create change, they can contribute, but they don't drive change. It's grassroots community organizing. Coming from a Canadian perspective, here we are. Here's a country, we live in a country, Jim, where since the 90s, and now there are people having kids that don't remember a time when there wasn't, like, the law of the land was parental leave. They that happened before they were born. That was in part created by, there was a strike in, I want to say 80, 81. One of the research regulars can correct me. Canadian Union of Postal Workers actually struck over the issue of parental leave. And that's kind of the way these things work. Somebody makes it such a big deal, it happens for somebody, and then it just spreads. And all of a sudden in the 90s, now it's not a radical idea. It's like most of the modern world. And I couldn't point to one individual where you'd say, boy, they really, I'm not saying there wasn't important individuals in the 60s and 70s who weren't talking about it, but that they were part of movements to a point where it's like hard to, Jean Chrétien brought it in. Like, he made it a campaign issue. The Federal Liberal Party made it a campaign issue, but no one's going, oh, wow, he gave me this. It was like an expression of a lot of grassroots community activism and a lot of movement building and that. Whereas it always seemed to be in mainstream American talking about these things, it's like, where are celebrities? When will the celebrities come and bring us to the, and it's like, it doesn't work that way. I think, and so I think that's kind of maybe it's part of a poke on these people and a discussion about that. But I'm wondering, it's like, it's too bad there wasn't a voice in that room to say, why, like, even one of the celebrities could have said, it doesn't matter what I do. Yeah, I'm famous, but, or even Sam Cooke said, yeah, I do have a great voice, and it could be a weapon, but it is not as powerful as 1,000 people showing up at X and saying, enough's enough, I want change now. You know, and I think that's one of the, let's say, if there's a weakness in the meaning of this film, in what's otherwise, and that's where I think that's where it falls down on its consciousness and its analysis. It kind of goes to the top, the ones that are making the most, and saying, when will you give up your stuff? Why you rich man won't give up your stuff and follow Christ or follow God? You know, I have this needle for you. Come on. Here's the eye. Pass through it. Do you know what I'm trying to?
Yeah. No,
explicate?
absolutely.
No.
Yeah. You know, and my wife and I frequently talk about this. If you turn on CNN, and I think this is similar to that. I think their idea of you know, it's sort of in celebrity culture, but the insistence on talking forever about heroes in the States, they're
role models. Oh,
yeah,
I shouldn't have done that. You know what? But role models.
But and now I know we have a number of American listeners, but if you have CNN, they have their salute to heroes and that kind of thing. And that's not necessarily bad. It just seems to be they're forever talking about heroes and heroic things. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of, you know, you can take this further and say it's all wrapped up into the one, you know, the gunslinger, or the, you know, the one person that's going to save everyone, or the star quarterback, or, you know, it sort of, it leads down that path a little bit. But yeah.
No, that's a great that's a great point, Jim. And I want to emphasize to our American viewers, I'm not talking about America, the United States, because what did you see in Black Lives Matter? What are you seeing in the unionization moves of in Bessemer, Alabama? You know, not exactly. I don't think of a hotbed of left-wing Hollywood activism. That's just regular. That's regular people getting together, going, "We've had enough," and all these Black Lives Matter marches, all these women. Like, I mean, I think Americans know exactly how to get change. I'm talking about that very narrow discourse where you have to be rich to participate in the discourse. You know, it's not like they're going into a community that will get, how do you feel about this policy? How do you know, the everyone else, most Americans get to comment on its immediate personal impact, but you don't actually get a room full of Americans going, hey, this is what we want to do about it. It's more like they're examined like some weird fish, you know. I really want to emphasize that. Whether you agree with my political take or not, I'm not trying to say that Americans think this, and that's why it's more, I'm commenting on a rather narrow part of America and how it talks about this stuff.
And for me, what I was discussing is more the media presentation of ideas like heroism. Yes. So yeah, not sort of, you know.
Again, yeah, that's again governed by a very small part of what is America is multitudes. You know? Now, we've got to bring back that Whitman thing. Okay, so Vlad65 comments, and I think this is actually, a perfect opportunity to jump into the chat. Actually, before we jump into the chat, you know what we haven't done, Jim?
Oh, yes.
We have not begged for a like. What kind of YouTubers are we? We haven't shamelessly begged our wonderful community, the best chat on the internet, for more. So yes, a like. If you haven't already, folks, please subscribe, and of course, if you subscribe, to be sure you're not just here for Sundays, but when we get together with some of our fellow YouTubers to have some fun and enjoy the gossip, the hot goss. on some ridiculous award show that we still find actually quite kind of important in our pop culture lives and are cool with it. Okay, and that means you got to ring the bell.
That time of the night.
And that, folks, is no hot take.
Oh yeah, you haven't used that yet.
I haven't had the chance to. We haven't really had many. Like, you were starting with a hot take, but you really kind of got into it, Jim, in your first thoughts, where it's like, that's not very hot at all. That's just that's a bang on. That's just good analysis.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well,
okay. Thank you. Back to though the chat. We have. Okay, first of all, I want to come back to, so Vlad 65. X was political. The other three were performers first. You'd expect the emphasis would be on Malcolm. That's it. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point, Walt. Chappelle's recent SNL hosting. Oh, because they did. They captured him on both nights. The night Trump got in, the night Trump moved on.
Yep.
Now, Richard, because again, he is 1/3 of our research regulars. Okay, Richard L. comments, June 3rd, 1981. Canadian Union of Postal Workers went on strike for 42 days for paid maternity leave and won. He continues, was a pivotal moment in Canada as it set a precedent and quickly became in demand by other unions. And yeah.
Good work, Posties.
Katie Fowler says, totally agree, Rob. Music is not the savior that drives social change. It is the soundtrack of it. Yeah. And yes, the Vlad 65 follows up with, the reality of organizing is years of tireless work by people like Stacey Abrams. The movement she kind of focused, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're going to continue doing what they're doing. Because, it's just a lot of boring, shitty, and hard, to be honest, sometimes dangerous work.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, so on that note, I think it is time, Jim, before we get into, our does the director pass or fail, our final thoughts. I think it's time to talk about, and I'm going to give you the screen. Why don't you tell us what we're watching next week as we move towards the Oscars?
We are going for one of those animated nominations. Well, we haven't done an animated movie yet. Oh, Wolfwalkers. I still can't get this. Yeah. There.
It's hard.
Wolfwalkers. Walking like a wolf, right there. So we're doing Wolfwalkers next week.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to doing an animated picture.
Yeah, we haven't done one. We've done a documentary, we've done foreign movies, haven't done an animated one yet. So
no.
Yeah, it'll be cool. There's no shortage of good ones out there either.
Yeah, and a hand drawn. It's actually a hand-drawn animated picture. So, we'll see. We'll pass judgment on it next week, because apparently we feel that we feel qualified as internet movie talker YouTubers. Okay, Jim. Then let's move forward. Let's talk about the director. Yes, the director. Ms. Regina King. Pass or fail?
I'd say pass. I mean, notwithstanding the comments we had about the look of it, there were elements of it. She brought everything together. There were a couple other scenes. I didn't love the Wembley Stadium sequence and a few other things, but that's. I mean, she had to sort of create the atmosphere for our four to ricochet off each other, and I thought she did a good job.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, total pass. Even given it actually a pretty a higher mark.
Mhm.
She did work with the playwright. It is his adapted script, which even more props, because a lot of times, although maybe we'll find out it's exactly that way for this production, but a lot of times it's, we bought your property, bugger off, and now I will put my stamp on it. And you're like, this it doesn't remind me of, when did the guy with the rocket pack come in?
Yeah, exactly.
And that she is able, she doesn't go full cinematic, which really does mean kind of retooling the story completely. While still, yeah, I got the feels at the end. That's a lot to do with the way she pulled everyone together.
Yeah.
You know, do you think, could you say though right now, it is, I believe it's the first time she's directed a film. She's certainly not new to sets or anything like that, but I do believe this is her first time directing effort. Do you think, Jim, that are we seeing any, like, her unique style right now, or is it, you know, or we got to see more, and we may never see her make another movie? Like,
I think we probably have to see more. Like, it's really hard to get sort of a sense of even, you know, and some guys, some direct guys, so some directors change their style in between movies, right? You know, Wes Anderson's always going to be Wes Anderson, but for every one of him, there's going to be a bunch of other, you know, there's other directors that just sort of like to mix it up, right? The story
will dictate the story will dictate the film, not well, I always do it this way.
One is such a small sample size that I'd hesitate to say anything you know, further, but I mean, I guess we'll tell with time. Like, some, you know, the choices she made for this movie, that you know, well, we'd have to compare it to other things that she does in the future, I think, anyway.
No, I agree. Certainly, though, worth keeping an eye on, you know, what she chooses to do next.
Well, even in some of her projects, The Watchmen is on the pile. Like, it's on the pile, the teetering pile of things I need to watch. And, you know, these things aren't at you, you know, you play tennis with better players, so you improve yourself, right? And so she's obviously, that was a highly critically acclaimed series. You know, who knows how much she would, you know, it's not like she's doing cheap throwaway rom-coms or anything like that. Like, she's doing some pretty interesting, intensive projects, and that's a good sign.
No, I agree. That makes total sense to me. Okay, why don't we then talk about what are your final thoughts?
Thoughts.
Have we missed anything, Jim? Is there
there's a couple,
anything you wanted to draw attention to before we wrap up?
I'm just looking at my notes here. I think we covered most of it. I like the line when the daughters introduce it, you know, saying that back at the estate, somebody's here. It's Jim Brown from the NFL. It's just kind of an interesting way to phrase that. But there's two things. What was the first? Oh, just when we were talking about meaning, and I forgot to squeeze it in there. There's sort of there's some hay that's made in the script. How many miles must a man walk down before he can call himself a man? So I think that also, my apologies, forgot to mention during the meaning part, but I think that sort of played, you know, I think you can add a couple words. How many roads must an African-American man walk down before he can call himself a man? And I think that's another aspect of it too, that I should have mentioned when we were talking about it 15 minutes ago.
That's a great point. You're absolutely right. It didn't even, like, at the time, it seemed almost like just a device, but you're absolutely right. It speaks right to the theme, like, or one of the themes of the piece. You know? It was like, but what more do I got to do? You know?
Yeah.
When can I just be?
A couple little notes too, and they mostly have to do with hotels and travel. First of all, Hampton House still operational.
Really?
At least according to, it's not in a very, like, it looks like it's on a sort of a freeway near a freeway overpass. Oh, Shashank just dropped in. So it's still operational and sort of done up in that 50s style. But the sort of the role of those two-story walk-up, those 1950s style hotel motels, you have to think about the resonance of it. Whether it's Martin Luther King being killed at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Sam Cooke was killed at a similar place later that year, and then you have something like this happening at the Hampton House. They also mention, it's funny, they mention the Green Book, not the movie, but the Green Book.
Actual, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm not sure if that was a nod or a wink or because it's got its share of criticism. So they do mention it, but just the sort of the role of and also how when you travel, you're already worried about enough things, right? And then you have to add sort of harassment onto that. I just can't imagine. But the role of the sort of the traveling in the lives of these people, of these guys, the African American community. Yeah, I can't believe it. I can't believe they had to go through what they went through. So
yeah. Well, and I think that's like it's interesting. As I was reading up on Sam Cooke, like there was and it's not referred to in the film, but there was like he did have a temper around hotels, especially in part because they show up at a place they couldn't get in, and then they're getting arrested later for disturbing the peace when all like just that insanity. Which is now being played out passive aggressively through Airbnb and people saying no if it doesn't have quite the right name. Your name isn't white enough. Sorry, no Shaniqua, no room for Shaniqua here. Okay. Richard, I think it's just kind of coming on what you were saying, Jim, and I'll bring his comments up here. Richard says, the phrase man has different meaning for African Americans. For example, also Bo Diddley's I'm a man, or Muddy Waters, mannish boy. And Muddy Waters comes up as a reference within the film. Then African American men were called boy in the Old South. If you moved north, say to Chicago, you're suddenly called a man, hence the importance of being called a man. Thank you very much. Again, Richard L. showing his research of regular stripes.
Yes, thank you, Richard.
We're going to have to make him a corporal or something. Give him give him all ranks or something, or buttons, something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. For myself, Jim, I think I've actually covered what I wanted to say. Especially like this is, I do tilt towards these kind of movies. I love the thing where you can really get into the themes and the performances. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good flick. Would I say, dear God, drop what you're doing? No, it's not that good. I'm not sure if I will remember this in a couple of years. At the same time, maybe some moments I really will. Like, I think the Sam Cooke moments, interestingly enough, like he's the one who brings us home. If a movie is a meal, he is both the after the main course salad and that little mint at the end, and it just all of a sudden what's otherwise been a pretty boring stew is just finished so well. The beginning, that gut punch in Georgia, you like a jalapeno popper or something.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that zing.
Yeah.
A solid flick, and a solid, well-acted flick with some meat, and deserves the plot it has received, as far as the adaptation goes, and Odom's nomination, although the others could have, geez.
Yeah.
Again, just one shout out for Lance Reddick. One more shout out, because that's just damn, he delivered. He delivered here. Good on him.
Yeah. I agree.
That would be my take on as far as final thoughts go. One more. This is something, Katie, comments in the chat. Can we put badges next to their name? I will look into that. I know that kind of thing can be done in Twitch. I'm not sure that can be done on YouTube, but I will look into it.
Yeah.
Be cool. I will look into it. All right. Folks, Jim, a pretty solid show tonight. We did manage to go over the running time.
Running time of the
movie. Our streak's intact here. Did you? Is there anything before I send you to the green room, so we can have a nice little post thing chat? Is there anything else you wanted to say to the best chat on the internet before I wrap us up here?
No, I'm just thinking happy spring, everyone. Now we're officially out of winter. We're officially in spring, at least in the northern hemisphere. So, that's about it. Just enjoy the sunshine when it finally comes out, or the rain. Sort of a novelty for us. And, enjoy the lead up to the Oscars and everything else that's coming out. There's so much coming out too, whether it's a 4-hour movie or another Stephen King adaptation or what have you. But cool. lot of grist for the mill.
Yes, very much so. All right, Jim, I'm gonna send you off, folks. Once again, I take this opportunity to remind you, next Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Central Time, Central Daylight Time, Universal Coordinated Time -5. Because we've gone through daylight savings here in North America, notwithstanding a couple jurisdictions in both Canada and the United States. We'll see you again. It's Wolfwalkers. You can find it on Apple TV and other places where you can get video on demand around the world. And I think that's about it. Let me thank you all again. The best chat on the internet. Ahmed, thanks for making it. Katie, Richard, thank you both for coming. Thanks for your research support. Same with you, Walt, Vlad65. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for popping in. The Upside Down. I'm so glad you could make it. Shashank, thank you very much for popping in. And I'm sure when you get to this point in the podcast, when you're watching it later, these thumbs up are for you, brother. Who else? Who am I missing here? Alejandro. If you're still with us, that's awesome. And let's. I'll just. Message popped up from Jim MFing Chleboyko to mention Mr. Curtis Judd. And yes, to all you guys, thank you all so much for coming by and joining us and contributing to the analysis of this pretty kind of cool movie. It's funny. Sometimes there's films where I end up liking it more after I talk to you all. And I think this is, and hearing your guys' takes on it, and I think this is one of those movies after talking to Jim and hearing your guys' views on it, and I think I like this movie more than I did at the beginning. So anyway, we've got 3 more comments, and then then we're gonna cue the outro. Vlad 65, interesting if we'll get yet another Oscar for an actor playing a real person. Churchill, Freddie Mercury, many more. Seems to impact voters. That is an interesting comment. Yeah, you know what? I don't know if we even talked about that in our analysis of the nominations. Katie Fowler. You know what, Katie? For you, let's give you all one more hot take. Alrighty, and yeah, Curtis, you're very welcome. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank you for dropping by, and I hope you all enjoyed yourself. And again, thanks for being part of the best chat on the internet. Alrighty, everyone. I think that's here. Am I? Yeah, I think, folks, it's time to bring down the tunes and cue the outro. Goodbye, everybody.
I've been in your waters.